intervention. Thanks from the Alfred Lewin Foundation for the invitation and the opportunity to illustrate the work it does through its library, named after Gino Bianco. The Alfred Lewin Foundation is a small cultural institution based on mainly on the voluntary work of many friends and private contributions. Alfred Lewin and Gino Bianco. It is starting from these names the reason for our participation in this seminar. Alfred Lewin, a young German Jew shot in Forlì in 1944, together with his mother, Jenny, and 17 other Jews, women and men. And Gino Bianco, journalist, militant, libertarian socialist, researcher, and expert scholar of English labor, from whose legacy of books and papers from his personal archive, the idea of creating the library that bears his name took shape. You will therefore understand how, among our main purposes, there are, on the one hand, that of cultivating the memory of the Shoah, and on the other, that of keeping alive the ideals of socialism without hiding our predilection for the humanitarian, libertarian component of it, and its mutualistic, cooperative, and self-government manifestations in general. Through donations and purchases, the Gino Bianco Library opened in October 2009 as put together a remarkable newspaper library, including magazines, Italian and non-Italian, of humanitarian socialism, anarchism, liberal socialism, republicanism, and democratic liberalism from the last decades of the 19th century to the 70s of the 20th century. Without forgetting, of course, some of those born during the struggle for liberation from fascism and after the Second World War. This led to the idea of digitizing these magazines and creating a digital newspaper library to be hosted on its own website. Biblioteca Gino Bianco si dice così, .it, so as to allow their consultation, which we wanted free online. Fra qualche minuto,
in a minute,
I will show you the site. You may have wondered why this specialization in magazines. Not having lived through the phase in which it was defined, I cannot guarantee it, but I believe that it was evidently affected by the fact that among the founders of the Lewin Foundation and the library, there were those who were and still are editors of the magazine Una Città. An intent to seek in the past those experiences felt similar in the democratic and internationalist supportive liberal gaze has gone so far as to create the digital newspaper library. which with these historic magazines clearly wants to bring to the attention and do them justice. Traditions of thought remained a minority and forgotten. We also recall to thanks to the relationship with Gino Bianco, we received from Miriam Rosenthal Chiaromonte a substantial part of the library of Nicola Chiaromonte, who founded and directed with Ignazio Silone the magazine Tempo Presente from 1956 to 1968. Where he left a series of articles and a short essays fundamental in its production. Moreover, that donation also included the complete collection of Politics, a famous magazine of the American left of the 40s, which saw Chiaromonte among the main protagonists. Nicola Chiaromonte was in fact a cosmopolitan figure, born in 1905, exiled to France since the 30s. He also fought in Spain for the Republic in the air squadron of André Malraux, and was subsequently an anti-totalitarian thinker, one of the greatest philosophical and literary essayists of Italian culture of the 20th century. In short, several factors played into the decision to undertake the digital newspaper library project, which I will describe briefly in its technical phases. The digital reproduction of the pages takes place using 3 different workstations, depending on the format of the magazine. There is an A3 scanner. Another one is a book drive, a book scanner with 2 cameras. And another one is a camera on a table stand for larger documents. The processing of the image files follows: straightening, cutting, possible retouching to improve the readability of text, to reach the creation of a PDF document for each issue, to be converted with a software that makes it browsable on the net. At the same time, we compile on the database of the Biblioteca Gino Bianco site the index of articles for each magazine issue. And once the flipping issue has been uploaded to the server, the software publishes the index on the site. And here I show you some example. Stefano is showing you Aretusa is a magazine of the after the Second World War.
Very purposeful.
Here is the list of the list of the issues of the periodicals, and on the right of the site you can you can see the list of all the periodicals browsable. Now we have over 50 periodicals in the site.
And books
also books, and later I tell you in a particular some example. By clicking on each issue, the magazine is opened, and you can turn the pages by clicking on it, and you can also zoom on the pages to read well, and so you can experience the digital library. I can say to you that the decision was not to put online the simple PDFs, but we wanted to do something less code, with maintaining the effect of the of turning the pages on the screen, and also with the sound of the I don't know if
sì, l'ho tolto
but there is also you can hear the sound of the page turning. In addition to the free consultation, we have decided not to allow the printing or downloading of the files. This was a precaution towards any rights holders, which for magazines, in the case of a collective work as a whole, remain up to 70 years from the first publication. Although acting in the spirit of EU recommendations and directives, we have probably forced a bit the laws enforced at the time, not limiting consultation to the library terminals, and providing a service for the supply of digital copies to those who request them. For a collective work, magazine, in fact, not only the rights of its author are valid, that is, whoever organizes and directs its creation, but also the hypothesis of those due to each collaborator, whose duration is determined on the life of each one. Moreover, these are copies, those who we supply to people who request. These copies are only for personal use, and so we can do it. However, I admit that I'm unable at this moment to tell you something about the recent developments regarding copyright in the European Union. So I don't know.
Parlare della ricerca.
Sì, The site was opened in 2011, and as I said you before, currently collects the collections of 58 periodicals, 35 of which are complete, for a total of almost 5,000 issues. Among the digitizations, particularly significant due to the importance of the documents combined with their rarity, we mention at least some of them, like Giustizia e Libertà by Carlo Rosselli, Politics by Dwight MacDonald, an American magazine, Mercurio by Alba de Cespedes, L'Unità by Gaetano Salvemini, and Quaderni Piacentini by Pier Giorgio Bellocchio, and Rinascita, La Roma del Popolo by Giuseppe Mazzini. Quindi, so we go back until the 19th century. Without prejudice to our fundamental interests in the humanitarian and liberal, libertarian, and the left-wing traditions, in recent years, the attention of the library has also turned to the communist area and the period of fascism. To give a more complete picture of what the 20th century was, we digitized Rinascita, the political cultural monthly of Italian Communist Party, and with Pegaso and Oggi. We started a work on cultural, literary, and costume magazines from the years of the fascist regime. With the collaboration of the Anna Pulishov Foundation in Milan, we also digitized Almanacco del Popolo d'Italia, that was a direct expression of the regime. On the site, it is possible to search for all indexed articles and brochures. You can do it in the window, little window on the upper right of the site. It occurs simultaneously by author and by word, or a part of it present in the titles. It is not a research by subject or keyword, which our database would allow, but which would have required an effort for the moment too great for us and slowed down our work. But I can say to you that there are some tricks you can do. For example, writing word roots in a certain way. it is possible to approximate the subject type of research by grouping a certain family of words in the results. For example, write feather. You can find federation, federalism, federal, and so on. From a research carried out, the site also allows you, as I said you before, to forward requests for digital copies to the library. The document delivery service fulfilled upon payment of a little contribution has reached important numbers. In the last year, 807 items have been supplied to the readers. Another indication of an increasingly known, used, and appreciated digital newspaper library are the number of visitors to the site. Over 23,000 unique users in the last year, and the messages of thanks and appreciation that in these years have come to the library from researchers, scholars, simple enthusiasts, truly from all over the world. In fact, about 22% of users come from abroad. The most represented countries are the United States, France, Spain, Germany, Great Britain, South Korea, Switzerland, Brazil, and Poland. Another particular I want to remember to you is that in every issue of these magazines digitalized, we made it is possible to make a full text search on the pages through OCR software, optical character recognition, that converts images of letters and numbers into a searchable digital text. Stefano is showing you an example. The recognition received with the digitalization activity made possible also thanks to the support and the contribution of the Institute for Cultural Heritage of the Emilia-Romagna region, has led to making friends and collaborating with public and private cultural institutions, including outside the region, making it possible to enrich the resources made available online. Since, in addition to the magazines, the site has, since its inauguration, a section of digitized books and brochures. We cite in particular two collaborative projects concerning that. The digitization of a collection of about 200 Mazzinian and Risorgimento brochures owned by the Italian Mazzinian Association, and that of the booklet fund by Alessandro Schiavi of the Saffi Library here in Forlì. And the list of books and brochures available on the site now includes over 500 titles. We can magari gli opuscoli socialisti, non so. Ecco, here is the Alessandro Schiavi booklet fund. You can browse the books. A fund about socialism, in general, from 19th century to the 20th century. And this is collaboration with the public library of Forlì. Our digitizations are indicated by important repertories of web resources. But first of all, we indicate them in the National Web Catalog of Libraries, and in the one that brings together the libraries of the 3 provinces of Romagna. They are therefore reachable from the catalogs and also from the Wikipedia pages on those periodicals. In preparing to conclude, I can tell you that in addition to working to be able to put new periodicals online, according to the guidelines I have described to you, we would like to broaden the perspective to Europe. We have an idea that concerns what was in practice a network of similar and friendly magazines with representatives in various countries. For now, I will not tell you more, but at the same time, we are interested in looking for periodicals of local territories, urban or provincial, who perhaps had a high vision of their inspiration and were therefore not localistic. Someone complimented us by pointing out that we would have contributed with the digital newspaper library to democratize research, making the source represented by the periodicals easily accessible, without long and expensive journeys and stays in the places where they are physically stored. It is something that makes us happy, but we like to think, and we have some evidence to prove us right, that we also have many normal readers, people who are often interested in the history of their territory, of their city, also because they are committed to it. Thanks everyone for your attention and good navigation to the site. I'll leave the floor to my colleague Stefano. Oh, questions. Questions.
Yeah, questions. Do you have questions? Everything is clear? Ok, complimenti. Complimenti.
Grazie.
You, more than a question, is just a reflection, una questione di pensiero. È infinita possibilità per fare ricerca. What we have seen is just a huge archive with infinite possibilities to do research. So thank you. This story, I also was thinking that because we were talking with Fatima, we were talking the other day that sometimes students, I think even at university, young students in humanities, they try to make research work very fast, and they need to research in it. I'm looking for a subject and I need to do fast doesn't fit with this. You need a lot of time, because also if you are passionate about research and you want to find out, just reading the article message takes you to ask more questions yourself. You need to look for things that you didn't. I mean, I'm sorry for my English today. You need a lot of time. Yeah. Yes, so, and the question is, do you have rewards? I mean, do you have, for example, some people that have made thesis or the result of a research? Has it arrived to you?
Yes, many citations, you can say. Citazioni,
Quotations.
quotations,
Yeah.
yes, in books and papers. We know about it, and we received many feedbacks.
Yeah, it's nice to be recognized as archive of magazines, because now we had this young student. She called because she was looking for magazines from the 70s, and she thought of us. Even though we don't have those magazines, we call, we listen, because they look at us like a starting point for this kind of research. So we have researchers and students calling us, and they look at us for that. So that's a reward. Yeah.
Considering that they are a group of men and women that think something new, and they do this experience. They are not financed at the origin by public, or it's a private group that
Well, we have a lot of volunteer work, and also we are using quotes with the European volunteer program and other small, like Leonardo, I think it's called. Like, there are young students from all across the country, the Europe, that come to help us. We had young Portuguese, young Polish people, like 17, 16 years old. They come and help us in digitalizing, because behind this that you have seen, there's a huge work, starting with taking the old book and photographing it, and then working it on Photoshop painstakingly, I must add. Every page for every book, for thousands and thousands. So we used during the years the help of many volunteer works. Now we have some social workers from Forlì, people like with disabilities and people with...
Siete un gruppo che ha avuto un'idea, non siete stati, non so, un'istituzione pubblica che ha avuto un'idea, un gruppo di persone.
Small group, but with...
In terms of presentation of local cookies, as all the papers are also from almost a century ago, and even more than that, about it, we showed some senior period. Are you already taking actions or planning actions for the future, or any special, I don't know, situations that you are facing?
we take the precautions.
Yeah, actually, we have not many people that come physically to us to read the magazines.
Yes.
We do this exactly not to use the physical copies, to preserve those. In that way, we preserve them by digitalizing them. Qui forse sai tu, fisicamente come le conservi, come le...
Sì, yes, and we have the basic attentions on that in terms of monitoraggio.
To control the
humidity and temperature and dust. And
we used masks before they were cool, like this.
Gross.
Sorry, I have another question. Since you showed us that there is sort of integrated software that gives you the possibility to look for words in the text that is an image, it's not digital text. I was wondering, is it the website, is it supporting in any way some sort of tools or functionalities for blind people in order to browse it? Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
You have to consider we also came from the end of Flash Player. Last year was and we use all of our website on Flash Player, so we had to change everything I knew. So
and, we are still working on this.
We have not finished yet. So we had a huge stop because of that, and every next project is postponed because we were like full stop with the end of the support of Flash Player. That was a huge deal for us. But yeah, that's actually an future feature.
Good advice.
Okay, next item. Okay, I also work with him in the Fondazione Alfred Lewin, and we deal with a lot of books and brochures and pages, but all of this tends to amount to stories and personal stories and real facts. And also we are called Fondazione Alfred Lewin for a reason, because this Alfred Lewin, as he told you, was a Jew that was killed after at the end of the Second World War here in Forlì in a huge massacre of Jews. And yeah. So people and stories and all these facts has to be communicated to young people. We thought that we think that Forlì is a historical birthplace of many things: socialism, republicanism, fascism, anarchism. Lots of things have started here or near here, and we have the responsibility to transmit this to the younger generation. So living in this small town and having friends, we tend to cross path with people that like grandfathers that were active part of this story. And this happened when a friend of us, he was a friend, his father was a friend of the grandfather of that was Tonino Spazzoli. Tonino Spazzoli was a Republican that lived in Forlì, And when I first heard the history of his life, I thought that it could be maybe a movie, but even better, a Netflix show, like 4 or 5 seasons of a Netflix show. I thought that because I think that's the way you get to young people, because of course, everything we have shown before could be I mean, frightening for young people. Could be lots of old pages. It has an attraction to it for some of us, but some other. We think that when you go and need to talk about these things in schools, you have to find a new way. So we cross path with the history, with the descendants of Tonino Spazzoli, which is somebody people know because there's a huge road here in Forlì that is called Viale Spazzoli. But apart from that, many people don't go further, especially young people. So no, not only, sadly. And so we met, we became friends with the descendants of the Spazzoli brothers. And we found out, we learned more about their story, and they opened up their old bookcases, their old wardrobes, their old cabinets, and they found the letters, photos, documents, and we digitalized all that. We always digitalize everything we find, actually. But then what to do with this digitalization? What to do with these documents? In a way, I repeat myself, that you can get to young people, that you can wake up their interest. Since we are not Netflix, we cannot make a show. Actually, there was a movie about the younger brothers. It was a movie about the Brigata Corbari. That was not so historically accurate, as I've been told. But it was a mythological figure in its own. But the older brother was what we were interested. So when they first presented us with all these documents, all these photos, all these things that testified about the fact that Tonino Spazzoli was a Republican, but he had early fascist sympathies. Then he abandoned those. Then he was friend with socialists. He was friend with, like everybody here in Forlì. Every grandfather could tell a Forlì guy that he was friend with fascists and socialists and Republicans. So he crossed paths with a lot of events. He was friends with people that were supposed to be his enemies, with people that in the end caused the death, his death and his brother's death. And so with all of that, they came to us and they said, what can we do with this? We cannot write a book because we are not historians per se. We should make a website, but how to present this in a website? And so we came up with this a bit crazy idea and a bit messy idea, but I think that's interesting, which is this genealogical tree made of friends and events. And it's something like this. It's messy, I repeat, but it's what we think can stimulate the interest of somebody by linking everything together with historical events. On the left part of the screen, you see the context, which is what was happening in history. In the center, there's the two brothers, gli Spazzoli, and on the right, there's further informations on single things. So we start with Tonino, and every box is clickable, and you can read it. So this is Tonino as a young boy and his history. And then as you go, you see who he was friend with, amicizia. You go here and you find this, he was a fascist element official. And you cross the phases of his life, his families, the youth, his older brother Pippo, when he was in the Battle of Fiume, the First World War, and you click here and you find the big events of his life that crossed path with everything else. For example, that's what we see when I tell you that they find out every little piece of paper, we digitalize those. So this is like when he went to Africa because he worked in stoves, eating equipment, and he had a factory in Africa and went there to work for that. And so he was on a boat to Africa in 1938. We even have the ticket, I think. So, and so these documents is travel to Africa. There are photos from Africa of him among the people, locals. And oh, here's the ticket. We even have the ticket from where he went there with the plane this time. This is him in Tripoli. And postcards. We have every postcard he sent, and we also digitalize those. And then he was, as I told you, he was in the early stages of fascism. He was curious, like many other Republicans, of fascism as a social changing force. But then when Mussolini bowed his head to the king to get crowned as a prime minister, the Republicans were out. Most of them were out of that because they certainly weren't going for a king. And so they became opponents to the regime, and they became observed by the police, so vigilato dalla polizia, I think. You understand what it means. It was controlled. So we had reports from police forces on the activities of these people. And yeah, but as you see here, there's update of May 2020, because after we did this, we went and sometimes some new documents come out. It seems impossible that something new came out of almost 100 years ago, but it happens. It happens that a friend of a friend finds a document that links to your story, and then you take it and you update it. You update the website, and so it was controlled by police, and then it was sent to Confino, which is confinement. You probably understand that. And he sent photos and letters from when he was out with his friends. This is Arpinati, which was another fascist. And we also have, of course, family photos, which is everything that makes the period. I think that a young person can relate to some photos like this. More than pages of history books, because you see the background of history happening there. You see the quiet moments while there was a war. You see things like that. Family photos and everything that we can get our hands on ends up here. And this makes a person out of him, more than a page in a history book. So his younger brother, Arturo, he has a very small section here because sadly he was dead by the time he was 20-something. But he became a pilot, and then he was against the regime, and he enrolled in a partisan brigade, a pretty famous partisan brigade that ended up being hanged in Piazza Saffi, to the lampposts. Even if Arturo was very young and we know very little about him, yeah, this is interesting. I'll show you if I find it. L'Infanzia. These are histories about people that have been, for many reasons, almost forgotten. Like the descendants of them tell us that they want their story to be more known, because they were important figures. They were gold medal for the resistance. Actually, they were awarded the highest prize for a resistant combatant. But we had to find every source we could. And one important and unpractical way to find new information is this. There was this person, Anna Spazzoli, which went to a school in elementary school, very young people, and told the story of his friendship with his cousin Arturo. And that's where we find some informations we haven't been able to find anywhere else, in no book or anything else. So interviewing these people is the key to get the small details before it's too late. Because if it was not for this tale, we didn't know anything about his young age. Because Arturo, he was young, he died young, and he had a brother that was more important than him. So we know everything about Tonino, and we don't know about Arturo. But even in the small school visit of this person that told the story and somebody recorded it and put it online, that's key to understanding a part of his life. So it's the living memory that has to be preserved. It is all in order to keep these things, not only books and documents, it's also people. So we also collect video interviews of people. We have, well, this has started 4 years ago, but we want to enhance it. So in the end, they ended up, like I told you, they both died. The Brigata Corbari, in which Arturo was enrolled, was hanged in Piazza Saffi. Tonino, he was arrested. He was brought to Piazza Saffi to see the body of his brother. Then he was killed in jail. And il riconoscimento postumo, this means the posthumous of their actions, which is we collect here everything that was written and made after they were dead, which is not much, but thanks to this website also something more is coming up. Like the association is still active today, and we are organizing things every now and then about the memory. Yeah, of course, the last 2 years we were stopped because of the COVID, but now we're starting again. And these are the medals and the motivation of their medals. So, of course, this was made all with volunteer work, and all because we live in this place where everything happens. So it's easier to do this when you can talk to somebody and they remember something and they tell you that, and they have a postcard and they have a document, and you can save it and put it online. It's easier because we live in the place, and so we know people that know stories and have written about it. And the only thing you have to do is to make these people meet, sit around a table and take out their notes and compile everything. And you can get a pretty good result with a small action in local level, I think. And so we have many people that have written the articles, that write books on these things. And so thanks to them, we could make this website. This brings me to another website, which was born after this, and it's made on
in the RAI, the national television.
This no, it's another, I think.
Oh, sorry.
since there was this massacre in Forlì, which is also, this is not very well known, but it was one of the biggest massacres in the Second World War, in the single massacre of most people, one of the biggest in Sant'Anna di Stazzema, I think, is the biggest, and this is comes second.
Marzabotto, sì.
And this was on the course of 2 days, almost 30 people were killed by the Nazis, and among those, there were 18 people that had nothing to do with Forlì. They were not from Forlì. They had foreigner names. And Fondazione Alfred Lewin was born when some of the people that worked in the magazine, I told you before, Una Città, find out that, I'll show you, found out that in the cemetery in Forlì, there were unmarked graves in the mass burial sites with strange names. And they say, who are these people? And dove sarà? Biblioteca, forse. Vabbè, qui c'è. And they found out that in Forlì, these people were killed in Forlì because, yeah, this is the tomb. They were killed in Forlì because in Forlì there was one of the last place to hold prisoners when the Nazi Germans were retiring from the south. The jail in Forlì that is still operational, it's very old, it's a castle actually, Rocca. Was the place where they sent the last people they wanted to kill, the last Jews they wanted to kill. They wanted to send to the camps, they wanted to just shot, to have them dead. And so these people were taken here and there from the south and central Italy and sent here, and they died here because of that. But they had nothing to do with Forlì. So we decided to compile their stories and not to call the website the massacre or the killings, but stories, 18 stories, because of the final moment of their life is sad and bloody, but they had huge and big lives that in a way are equal to the ones I told you before, because they crossed events from all the European history. So they came from Hungary, from Austria, from Germany, from all around Europe, and they had one thing in common. When the anti-Jew laws were passed in Germany, they thought that Italy would be safer. They heard that Italy would be safer. They heard that the fascism was not so anti-Semite. They heard that they could have a chance, or maybe they tried to come here because that would be a place to start to go to Israel or Africa or Thailand or very many places in the world, but to go away from Europe. And so the website opens with this very shocking quotation, which means, my dad was dead in 1927 because of stomach cancer. And later we thought ourselves that he was lucky because he didn't witness everything that happened after. This is said by Lissy Levin, which is a sister of the Alfred that gives the name to our foundation. She was alive and became the president of our foundation, and she has passed now, because she was sent to England as a girl au pair. Like many other young women were saved because they were sent abroad. But her brother and her mother, they all flew from Germany and came to Italy, to Cremona, to open a bakery. And they worked as bakers there. And then when the anti-Jews laws passed, they were Jews and they were foreigners, so they were considered like as enemies of the state. And they were sent to camps, which in Italy was a different deal than Germany, because we had two real concentration camps. One was in Modena, Forlì, and the other one was in Campania. And there were no. The others were sent to small villages. It's very, very small village, like 600 people, one there, two there. They were separated and lived as prisoners in the small towns. And depending on when you were sent, you had higher chance of surviving the war or not. Because in the end, who went to the south and stayed there was saved. Didn't die and was liberated by the Americans. The others were in the middle, like these people, or in the north, tended to die or to be sent to Auschwitz or something like that. And when you read their stories and you see they are about to choose where to go, because sometimes they could ask, I want to go there because my mother is there. I want to go there because my cousin is there. You knew they were doing the wrong choice or the right choice, but that all amounted to that. And when you go into this detail of stories, you feel something in yourself, like if it was in me, because you see that the small life of them. And so this website, we wanted to do it like the other one, but I tried and it was a mess. It was like a huge ball of dots and lines crossing, and it was pretty difficult to do. So we simplified that and we made small boxes for them on the left. So these are the people and the photos, and some of them we don't have a photo. Some of them, the only photo we have is the one the police took them. You can see it. These are segnaletic, I don't know, how do you call them? The photos the police take you when they arrest you. Some others, because they were poor, most of them were refugees, were fleeing from Austria, from Germany, and they had no money, so they didn't have photos. It was something very expensive for the time. And I'll show you some of this. Yeah, Levin. This is Alfred. We have his face and his signature on the logo of our foundation. This is him. This is his mother. This is their story. So names, dates of birth, and the date of death is the same for all of them. And we have documents for their for the police. Yeah, or most of the documents came from the Ministry of Internal Affairs, which is its archives. And we have documents of when they were apprehended, where they were sent, the money they were given, because actually the prisoners had a small amount of money they had every day. These are all the documents that you can use it to, and the text that help you write their story. So there are also the classical and sad refugee stories, and also the particular ones, which is this. I think this is pretty interesting because he was a fascist. He was a Jew and a fascist. And he was an entrepreneur which came from an Austrian family and was sent in Italy to open up the Italian factory. It was a factory very famous for the chairs. He did a particular kind of chair that was famous, and he's still famous. He came to Italy. He became a fascist because his family was from a military background in Germany, and he could not understand why he was arrested. He sent many letters. He said, "I'm one of you. Don't arrest me. Set me free." And he had the possibility to work in a factory in Cesenatico, a toy factory, and he had permits. He seemed like one of the guys that could make it because he was connected. He knew the entrepreneur of this factory that could write to the prefetto, could help him have permits. But in the end, he died all the same. So these are the small histories that also tell you how cruel was the system. How could you think you could make it? It was not like hopeless for every one of them. They had chances. They thought they had chances. Then there are the stories of people that were about to make it, were on an actual ship. They went to Israel, but in Palestine, they were in Egypt. The ship was sent back because the Suez Canal was closed. So you think if only 1 month earlier they could have departed, they would make it, but they didn't. And so this also was fought for schools to help people connect with the personal lives of every one of them. And we think that one of the ways that you can make somebody get interested in knowing more and asking around also about these people. So this was I'll show you just another website to close. It's about this. We, as Fondazione Lewin, and with all the partners you can see here, we decided to add another step, because this is all part of our so-called mission to make Forlì reflect on himself and its historical heritage and its historical importance, because we fear that Forlì could be remembered only as the birthplace of fascism, which is in a way is true because Mussolini was born around here, but in other ways is not true because fascism was never as strong here as it was in other places. We had so we decided to, this is the 8th year we make this festival of history here in Forlì, and we call people from all around. Well, this year we have only 2 foreign guests because of the COVID restrictions, but in the past years we had many foreign guests, and it's gonna be next week, 27 October, and we this will be dedicated to democracy and peripheries. And this is the last piece of the puzzle to tell you what we do actually. So thank you.
I think this experience is important, in my opinion, for 3 reasons. The first one is for the importance of semantic maps. Semantic maps are something useful to simplify or to make evidence a fil rouge, to have a story, especially when the facts that we will narrate are very complex. So I think semantic map is a tool. The second reason, my idea, is for the importance of personal stories and ordinary life. Is regard the importance of the witnesses in the narration, but also for the vicinanza, okay, of the life of today and the life of our ancestors. Yes, our ancestors. And finally, I think this experience, like the collaboration with Fondazione Lewin, like the collaboration with Istituto Storico della Resistenza, is something fundamental for us as a cultural group. The importance of the network, the importance to have this kind of connections, because we are not specialists, but we are in charge of the dissemination, we are in charge of the promotion of the attention. So it's like your link with the Israel library, of course. It is important to have a network. This is my idea, the importance of this kind of experience. Semantic maps, lab to the right, and a network. So, thank you, especially because they are inside the war, they are working on the organization of the next festival on the history, 20th century history. But do you have some questions?
I was just wondering, you said you are a small team of mainly volunteers, it's a small institution, so you're doing really a huge work. But do you also do activities for school and students, like structured activity? Because I think this would be very good for school, because when you teach history, then maybe it can be something very far from them. But in this case, for example, the student of Forlì would have I think a very interesting way to go into the history, because it deals with them, with their town, with their grandfathers and grandfathers. So I think it would be, but I'm not those students that we're very small team, so maybe it can be very hard.
No, yeah, we do it. We started by doing this, actually. Before the website, our Gianni Saporetti, which was one of the men that found the graves in the first place, he went every year in schools from the 27 gennaio, Giornata della Memoria, to talk about this. And also recently we also have the classes of students coming to our school, to our foundation, because we have a exhibition made of panels. And before the website there was this exhibition, and the website is like an upgrade of that exhibition. And so we place the panels all around and they see it and everything. And we talk also about this. And the interesting part of this is, how is a class made up today? Many people from many countries. So when you talk about racism to them, it has a relevance that's different than and most of us right here, right now. Because when you talk about racism to them, they know what it's about. So they give you something, they tell you something that you don't know. And so it's important to have this sharing experience, because they are living an environment we never experienced before, like 3 or 4 ethnicities different in the same classroom. Like somebody that's has a black skin but identifies himself as an Italian, so they can know what, more than you, they know what you're talking about. So yeah, so we did this for schools in the first place, for students. Sì. Fratelli Spazzoli are really interesting story, and a particular innovative way of documenting and importantly sharing their remarkable stories. Excellent. I didn't want to read it because to be humble.
Thank you very much for your exposition. It was really, really interesting. I like that even that you are talking about the period of death, you're telling stories of life, mainly. That's very, very important for all. And I would like to know if, continuing a little bit with this idea, if you're somehow connected with the nowadays Jewish life in Italy, what kind of projects can you do?
Well, actually, yeah, I forgot to tell you something about the thing. These Jews were not from Italy. They lived briefly in Italy, and we are now trying to reconnect with their descendants. We started with this, like Fondazione Alfred Lewin was the first president, was the sister of Alfred Lewin, because we told her where the bones of his brother and his mother were. And we did the same with as many of them we could, and we interviewed them on the history of their parents, because some of them found out or haven't yet found out where their relatives remains are. So we connected with this part, where with the local communities, yes, in the years we had the Rabbino Caro, which was the head of the Jewish in Ferrara, that came to Forlì when we made the grave in the monumental cemetery for these people. So it was a huge ceremony, and we are recognized as like Forlì had made a step toward recognition of this event. But also, yeah, we are connecting with people, interesting people from all descendants or students, scholars on this issue. Many. There's this guy, I just want to tell you about this guy. There's a family that was from a small village in Hungary. We found out about him. He is doing cemetery work. He goes traveling with motorbike in all the Jewish cemeteries of Eastern Europe. And he has traveled as far as Turkmenistan with this motorbike to go and take photographs of all the Jewish cemeteries all around Europe. And we made an interview with him. It's on the website. Oh, yeah. It's like a modern day Indiana Jones. It's fantastic. So yeah, the next step would be organizing a yearly meeting of the descendants of the people that have died in Forlì. That's the next step, which also was stopped for obvious reason by the recent events. No, ho finito. Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
Le interviste. These are the interviews to the relatives of the victims. This is Lissy Levin, the one that has died now, but she was alive when she met with us and we told her about the graves. Then this Andrea Morturgo is the brother of the only Italian guy that was from Trieste, Gorizia. And you made the interview to Andrea Morturgo, you and Gianni. And so they add little things to the story we have collected. And then there's the nephews of Carla Pacht and Maria Rosenzweig. They came here in Forlì in our foundation to discuss about what they know and what they didn't know and what they found out. And this is Edgar Hauser, the Indiana Jones of Jewish cemeteries. And we made a video interview. He was like a high-ranking CEO of a big company and he decided to quit it all to start wondering about his Jewish ancestry and travel the world because of this. Amazing history. And Victoria Ford, it's Okay.
I have a question linked with this and with what you talked at the end. Have you talk about your partners, and I'd like to know if the Ireland is one of your partners.
The?
Ireland, International Council of Members.
Well, I think we consult for documents and funds. We also
all this information
see, yeah.
will is very important to the Ireland. This is an audience, an international Holocaust audience for members, and I think you would give the knowledge to this audience because it is very, very important, this information. And the site of the audience, if you look Ireland, you see they have links to websites like ours. Important archives, yes.
Okay. Because we, as you can see here, we have a link with the CDAC. Yeah.
This is the international yes.
Okay. Yeah, we can connect with them.
This will be and on to make a resources. It was very important if your archive would be with a link from this site. It's a specialized organization, and Italy is represented in this organization, and I think it will spread your
Thank
archive.
you. I'll write it down. Yeah, we have these
Talk
are.
about your representatives, Italian representatives, and surely they will put a link in this site, and it will spread a lot your archive.
Thank you. Yeah, as for the other archives, we have used this. This is a very huge archive on people died in Italy, from Italy, the Jews that were institutionalized and were sent to Auschwitz or not. And these are all the names, and we have got a lot of information from here, as you can see. And also Shoah Museum, and also CDEC, Centro di Documentazione Ebraica Contemporanea. Yeah, thank you. Anyway.